Welcome everybody. Thank you for coming. I'm thrilled to see all of you here. We're going to have some fun. We're getting to some of my favorite topics here. We're up to part 15 of User Manual for Humans. So by now you should be starting to get an idea how to take care of the human. So tonight's topic is basically how to feel good. Is anyone here at all interested in feeling good? Okay, good. So let me ask you this also. Is there anything else in the world that you are interested in except feeling good? Is there anything at all that you do for any reason except to feel good? Not really. Not really. So this is kind of a big topic. And yet, humans are not necessarily very good at it. Even though we all want to feel good and it's the only reason that we do anything, we don't really have a clear grip on how that happens. So why do we care? What makes us feel good and what makes us not feel so good? First of all, just bear with me. Why do we want to feel good? First of all, it's really obvious because it feels good to feel good. It feels a whole lot better to feel good than not to. But more so, feeling good heals the body. When you feel good, you are reducing stress, you're enabling all sorts of physiological processes. If we do blood tests before and after something that made you feel good, you will see that your immune systems will improve, that all sorts of things start working better in the body when we feel good. Also, if we want to look further, you probably notice that it's easier to like somebody else who is feeling good. Not someone who's sort of full of themselves, but we're drawn to people who feel good. And when people are nasty and ornery and feel bad, we don't want to deal with them. Feeling good is really contagious, and just in general, it tends to make things work out really well in life. The next is one of my favorite poems by an Indian guy called Rabindranath Tagore. He says, "I slept and dreamt that life was joy. I awoke and saw that life was service. I acted, and behold, service was joy." And that kind of puts it in perspective. That's basically what we're going to talk about. That it's not so much what you do, but it's how you interpret what you do. And the saying is, if you can't do what you like, then learn to like what you do. Okay, that's basically the same thing. Because life is about joy. There's really, we all said it. Everybody wants to feel good, and there's no other reason that we want to do anything. So life is about joy. And the more that you start kind of searching for the purpose of life, the more you probably come up with a conclusion that life is joy. The purpose of life is to feel good. Joy is our natural state, and this is a big one. Joy is it's natural, and it will be our natural state until we interfere with it. So if nothing else is going on, then joy is present. And it's the same thing that we talked about before with health, that health is present unless something interferes. It's just like water running downhill. It's going to keep doing that because it's in the nature of water and gravity to run downhill until something interferes. So it is with the health of the body. It is natural for the body to find balance and health until something's interfered with. And the same thing is true with joy. Suffering, on the other hand, is not very natural. And we're going to make it really, really simple. And we're going to say that suffering is focusing on how something is not the way it's supposed to be. Can anybody find an exception to that? I don't think so. So suffering and feeling bad is basically we want something to be different than the way it is. Does that usually work? No, things are the way that they are. From the time that we observe them, that is what is. And yet when we feel bad, we want it to be different. So it makes no sense whatsoever to feel bad. So it's really just, we've talked a lot about conditioning before, and this is just another way that we're conditioned. This is something that we're taught, and we can also unlearn it. So if we see something and it's not the way that we like it, the obvious solution for most people, for the ego especially, is then to make everything in the world the way it's supposed to be, right? So, because if everything in the world is the way it's supposed to be, then you don't have to feel bad about it. It's the simple, easy solution. But when you think about it, it's kind of a big job. So you want to arrange everything to your liking, then you want to get rid of traffic, you kill all the mean people in the world, you get rid of bad weather, the floods and the tornadoes, eliminate suffering and disease and death. Okay? When do you think you'll have that done by? All right? So even though the ego, and when we're conditioned to think that, okay, well that thing out there doesn't please me, so let me change that. There is another way, and that's to change how I feel about the thing. And we have a certain amount of resistance to doing that, because after all, we are right and we don't want that thing to be the way that it is. And we can justify why we're right, and we'll argue and we'll tell people, and we'll form associations and clubs and write books about why it shouldn't be that way. But really, what we're going to talk about is that it is much, much smarter to actually just let the thing be the way it is and change how you feel about it. So here's another famous poem. Lord, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. And there's a lot that goes into that. So when we want to change something, it basically means that we're trying to have a certain amount of control, that we think that we would feel better if we can control the thing out there that's annoying us. So when we can control the thing, we'll feel better, and this also gives us, as we get trained in this way of thinking, it gives us a control mentality, that we start having the need to control. And when you start looking around at all the things that you want to change and control, then that gives you a lot of stress, because now there's a lot of stuff on your to-do list. And we get into a mentality of action and doing. And even though we don't necessarily do a lot about it, we worry about it. We think about the things that we ought to do. And this is where we get this feeling of overwhelmment. It's more so on a mental to-do list than something that we're actually about to do. And then once you realize that there's a lot more things in the world that are out of your control than there are things that you are actually supposed to do something about. So what you can control, which we'll talk about, is you can control how you feel. And that is the only thing that you can, and the only thing that you're supposed to control. So let's just talk about how good the world really is, and how few things there are that need fixing. The world does not need fixing. It's just right the way it is. It's not waiting for you to be born and go and take care of it. So how much effort did you have to put in this morning to keep the earth spinning? Okay, not much. It's doing it by itself. Okay? You can check that off your list. So the sun still rises, water still flows downhill, plants still grow, houses are still built. This building here, you didn't have to put 1 ounce of effort into making it. It was just here for you. Cars are made. You don't have to make them. Food is produced. There's so many things when you start thinking about it. When you start appreciating all the things that are just there for you, then you realize how incredibly easy life is. That all you have to do is go to your job or whatever your your pastime is, and do what you're supposed to, and they'll give you money in the form of credits, and then when you get your credits, you get a little plastic card, so you don't have to pump the gas, you don't have to build the car, you don't have to grow the food, you just swipe your little piece of plastic and things just show up for you. And once we start thinking, the more that we can think of how easy life is, the easier it becomes, because the emotional burden is off our shoulders. So, reality. So now the sensible person says, yeah, but just look around. Look at all the terrible things. I watch the news every day. You can't close your eyes. The reality, it's out there. Well, there's lots of things that are real. There are good things that are real, and there are bad things that are real. Just because they're bad doesn't mean that you have to pay attention. It doesn't mean that you have to pay more attention and make it more important. But because of the way that our society works, we have something called news. And they sift through all the things that happen, and everything that's newsworthy is anything that's really bad. So if there's a million things in the world that happen, if there's a happy mother cooking a meal for their daughter, or a daughter gets an A on a spelling test, or somebody gives somebody a hug, somebody gives somebody a smile or a handshake that lets them in traffic, there's millions and millions and millions of good things happening. But when we open up the paper, they're going to tell us who died and who was shot and what else is wrong. They're sifting through reality for us, and they're giving us a tiny, tiny, tiny little slice of reality, and they're making us believe that that's what the world is. And if we watch the news and if we take that in every day, that's going to be our most global belief. That's going to be our worldview. And that's how we're going to wake up and feel about the world. So it's not about how many things there are out there that are bad. It's for every bad thing, you can choose a good thing. And whatever you choose to put your attention on, that is how you will feel. Guaranteed. So, have you noticed, for example, that last time that you bought a new car or a used car or whatever, all of a sudden, there was thousands of those cars driving around? Have you noticed that? Or when you buy a new toy or a new piece of clothing or a new bike or a new whatever it is, all of a sudden there's just lots and lots of people. You notice they have the same one. Well, there's just more of them everywhere. And that's just because you tuned your attention to that channel. And whatever you tune your attention to, that's going to show up more. That's how the world operates. So you can tune your attention to bad stuff, and that's going to show up. Or you can tune your attention to good stuff, and that's going to show up for you. So it's not how much stuff there's out there, because it's all there. Every bit of it. There's billions and billions of things out there, but you can choose which ones you notice. And that's going to determine how you feel. So then the next cynic, the complaint, or what am I looking for, the word? I can think of the Swedish word, but anyway. So someone says, well, you can't think like that. You have to be realistic. You can't just turn your head and just look at the good stuff. That's awfully selfish. So we're also taught that we're selfish if we don't pay attention. That's why we feel the need to look at all the bad news, because after all, if we don't partake in it and feel bad about it, then we're being selfish. But this is based on a lack mentality. When we think that there are limited resources in the world, then we believe that we can only have something if someone else is deprived of it. And that may hold true for certain physical items in certain situations, but it's not true for well-being. And this is one of my favorite lists here, and it really puts things in perspective. You can't be poor enough to make others wealthy. You can't be confused enough to give others clarity. You can't be angry enough to give others peace. You can't be sad enough to make others happy, and you can't be sick enough to make others healthy. So when it comes to well-being, what you do does not interfere with anybody else. It's the absolute contrary. That if you feel good about yourself, then you have something to give. And feeling good is contagious. Then you can be a role model, you can be an example, and you will actually have something to offer to somebody else. So there's no limit to joy and well-being. You don't have to worry about being selfish. You're not depriving someone else of their happiness just because you feel happy, just because you feel good. So when you decide that news make you feel bad, and as you start feeling better, you'll notice that, I don't want to watch news anymore. That stuff makes me feel bad. It doesn't fit with my goal of feeling good, and you're not depriving anybody else by making yourself feel better. So where does joy come from? Joy does not come from having or getting stuff. We believe that it is, because every time we get something, we're happy. We get a new car, new diamond ring, new toy, new whatever, new raise, new job. We get happy, but it's not the thing that makes us happy. It's how we feel about it. It's our interpretation of whatever's going on. And then someone says, well, I'm not materialistic. Relationships, love, that's what's important. So when I'm loved, that's when I'm happy. And that's not true either. Because there are lots of people who have stuff that are not happy. There are lots of people who are loved that aren't happy. So actually, what makes you happy is how you feel about something. So it's being happy is something that you put out. It's your feeling or your vibration towards somebody. So whether it's a thing or a person that you love, it's the state of loving that makes you happy. It's the state of appreciating something that makes you happy. What about all those really, really good reasons to be upset? When you just know that you're right. I mean, there's so many times that you just know you have a good reason. Shouldn't you be allowed to be upset? And the answer is, of course you are. But why would you want to? And that's the whole point. That there's the cliche, would you rather be right or happy? And being right never actually leads to anything. You can never win an argument. Whoever you argue with and you convince them that you're right, you didn't make them happy, you didn't make yourself happy. You just wasted a bunch of energy and wasted a bunch of time. So when you spill something or break something, when you watch senseless violence, if you get rudely cut off in traffic, if you lose a job or important contract, if you lose, even worse, you lose a relative or a family member, those are definitely, absolutely, really good reasons to be upset. And it's only human that we are. I mean, I don't know anybody that can completely avoid it. But one way to deal with it is to ask yourself, well, now that I see what happened and I'm upset, how long am I obligated to be upset? Okay? Because if I spill something, well, I'm upset 30 seconds. Some people may be upset the rest of the day, but most people would get over it pretty quickly. They wipe it up, they clean the mess, and they move on. But if you can get over something after a certain amount of time, why not get over it right now? Why do you have to spend that time before it's okay to get over it. Okay? And we have these things that the more severe it is, so let's just take the most extreme example. We lose a family member. I'm not going to say that you shouldn't be upset or that you won't, but it helps to ask yourself, what would that person want for you? Okay, you lose a partner. Would that person want for you to be miserable the rest of your life? Would that be their highest wish? Or would they say, okay, it happened, it's history, I would love for you to get on with your life. And then we can look at that differently and we can say, well, instead of just looking at all the bad stuff and how terrible it is that they're gone, let's just look at appreciating what they were here for. So maybe then we can get over it or have a higher quality of life after a month rather than just dragging it out and be miserable 10 years later. Because there's some people that that say, the moment something happens, they say, I'll never get over this. And they make it a promise, and they never do. But who's benefiting from that? So there's certainly some things that we may say that there's a good reason, but in the bigger perspective, there's not really ever a good reason. So let's review a little bit. Suffering is when you want something to be different than it is. And we've said, that rarely works because what is, what is. You're arguing with reality. So in a sense, you're resisting what is. And resistance is sort of a roadblock. Resistance, there's a cliche again, what you resist persists. And especially this holds true with thoughts and feelings, because the moment that you resist it, that resistance kind of clings. It becomes the glue that holds that together and keeps it with you. And what we also have to understand is resistance or feelings or thoughts, they're not real. We make them real. We think when we have a feeling, when we're absorbed by a feeling, we believe it's real, it feels real. But it's just a feeling. There's nothing real about it. Nobody outside of us, unless we told them, would know anything about it. It's a completely internal experience. And they're never really about the thing, but it's our interpretation and it's how we choose to focus, how we choose to view the thing that we're upset about. So resistance is the same thing as holding on or not letting go. So suffering is always about how you look at it. Always. And you can have really, really good reasons for upsets, but you're not going to get any points in heaven or anywhere else for being right or for having a good reason. The only one suffering from that good reason is the person with the feeling. And to round all of this up, all that really matters is how you feel right now. So if you make that decision that the most important thing ever is how you feel, then you've come a long way. And if you make that a priority, then you can notice when you're not feeling good, and you can have a little distance. You can step away and say, oh, I wonder what this is all about. And you don't have to become absorbed by that emotion, by the situation. And we'll talk in a little bit about one technique that you can use. And one of my favorite sayings by Wayne Dyer, change the way you look at things and the things you look at change. It's so simple and so profound. So, let's talk about letting go. And this is not something I came up with, and it's down on the resources page. It's number 1. It's called the Sedona method. And I'm just going to run you through very, very quickly one way of how this can work. That about what letting go is. That first, you have to understand and make the acknowledgement that you can let go, that feelings are not real, that it's something that you can just drop. First, you welcome the emotion. Don't resist it, just let it be what it is. And then you ask yourself, could I let it go? And then you ask, would I? Am I willing? And then you ask, when? And obviously the answer is right now, because there's no reason to postpone it. And then you can dig a little deeper and you can ask, this feeling that I have, is it about me wanting more control, more approval, more security, more separation from something, or more oneness, more unity with something? So I'm not going to even pretend to teach you the technique, but I want to just expose you to one way of doing this. And if you like, then there's lots and lots of resources, and he's got a wonderful course that you can order. So if everybody put your pens down, or put your block, keep your pen actually, put your block down, and find yourself a comfortable position, and then you take your pen and you grip it and hold it really tight. And this is a feeling. This is what we do to feelings. We hold on to them. We say, this is mine. And I'll tell you, I'll explain to you why I feel this way and why I'm so entitled and why I'm right. But it's just a feeling, and we're holding on to it. We're doing the gripping. And once you understand that, all you have to do is just understand that it's not attached to you, and just let it go. Just drop it. And once you can separate yourself from the emotion and let the emotion come in and observe it, then you can drop it. And if you look back, I think you already see, but if you look back and review this and you understand that everything we talked about, your entire quality of life, is about how you feel. And we all said that we want to feel good. So wouldn't it be pretty valuable to be able to change how you feel, to drop an unpleasant feeling at will? And you can do it in 10 seconds rather than 3 days. So everybody pick something that annoys you right now or on a regular basis. Okay? And just pay attention to how you feel about it. Okay? Welcome the emotion. And how does it feel to want to change that? Can you feel the tension that comes from wanting to change it, wanting to control it? You can keep your eyes open or close your eyes, whichever is more comfortable. And then ask yourself, could I let this go? Could I drop it? And you don't have to drop it forever. Just for now, just in this moment, you can pick it back up in 1 minute if you like. But just for now, could you drop it? Would you? When? Did anybody notice a difference? Did anybody feel a little bit lighter about the topic? Okay. And I'm not claiming to do this justice either, but I want to give you an idea. And then what you can do is, you don't just do it once, but you just do it over and over and over. And you do it until you feel a sense of complete relief, until you don't care one way or the other. And this feels like a trap to most people, because it feels like, well, I really do want to change it. There are things that I really do care about. But that's the fallacy, because we think that we have to feel bad about things to change them. When the truth of the matter is, when we let go, we liberate resources to actually deal with it. So what we find is when we feel that we really don't care, then is when things really start happening instead. So it's worth a try. So then revisit that feeling. If there's the same feeling, if it's still there, if it's less or whatever, or you can pick another one. And welcome it, let it be what it is, and dig a little deeper and see if it feels like it comes from wanting control. Does it come from wanting approval, security, separation, or oneness? And if you don't know which one, just pick one. It really doesn't matter. That's the great part about it. And then, just for now, could you let that go? Could you drop it? Would you? When? And one more time, see if there's a little bit of that feeling left, or a lot of it left. And welcome it. Just let it be. And dig a little deeper and see if it comes from wanting control, approval, security, separation, or oneness. And then ask yourself, just for now, could you let it go? Just drop it. Just let it drift away. Would you? When? Anybody feel a little different? Feel a little lightness? Hands up. Okay. So it seems really, really simple, but a lot of the profound things in life are really simple. So we'll call a stop right there. And if you have any questions, I'll be happy to take those, and it can be questions on anything. So thank you very much.